Hello, everyone. My name is John from Community Life Church in Catskill, New York, and this is Meals Ready to Eat from the Bible. Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is 5 more things from the book of Romans that I learned just by reading it. So that would make 10 things from the book of Romans altogether. Now, Romans, the letter that Paul wrote to the church in Rome, has a lot of stuff in it. There's a lot that we can learn from that. But we don't have to be Bible scholars to get all of it out of that or learn anything. What you do have to do is you have to read it, think about it, meditate on it, do a bit of study, and you'd be surprised just how much you can learn, because that's what I did just by reading it, learned an awful lot. Let's take a look at 5 things that I got, or 5 more things that I got out of the book of Romans, chapter 1. Okay, now here's what we got. Number 1, for I am not ashamed, put that up on the screen there, of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. That's Romans 1:16. Yep, message of the gospel was preached to the Jews first, and Jesus, after all, is a Jew. However, the gospel was sent to all people, and this is proclaimed even in the Old Testament. If you go back all the way into Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, it says this, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. The gospel is for everyone. Number 2, for in it, the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed from faith for faith, or to faith, as is written, the righteous shall live by faith. And this is Romans 1:17. And this is kind of a historic and important verse. You know, we always see John 3:16 all over the place, but this is really important because this is the rallying point of the reformers in the 16th century and even up into today. Excuse me. The fact that we are saved, or that the righteous live by their faith. We don't live by our works. You know, we're to follow God and turn to Him in faith, but our actions can never let us gain favor with God. You know, we can't do this, we can't do that, and get saved by what we do. They can't save us. We're saved by the work of Jesus Christ alone, and that is grace. It's by grace through faith. You go read, you can read about this in Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 and 9, where it says we're saved by grace through faith. Number 3, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, of people, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. That's Romans 1:18. You know, if we want to talk about the wrath of God or the judgment of God, we also must talk about the love of God and His love for us and for all people, and vice versa. If you want to talk about His love for you and for me, you got to talk about His righteousness and His severity and His judgment and His wrath. It's all tied together. Now, God almost certainly is going to judge those who hide the truth of the gospel and who live wanton, destructive lives. But as long as a person is alive, as long as you're alive, and as long as I'm alive, we can be saved, we can work for God. Now, the apostle that wrote this, Paul, we can read about his actions and how he was saved in Acts chapter 6 through 9. And if you go there and read it, you'll see the horror of a man named Saul, who became Paul, who was killing Christians. And then, you know, he was going to churches, dragging people out, bringing them back to Jerusalem, and all that stuff. And then God's judgment fell on him, and he got saved. And not only that, but he wrote the book of Romans and a good chunk of the New Testament. So God's wrath and judgment and love and all that stuff are all tied together, and they all work together, and you can't have one without the other. Number 4, therefore God gave them up in the lusts of their hearts to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves. That's Romans 1:24. This is repeated, this God gave them up, in verses 26 and 28. Excuse me. If we insist on sinning, God's going to let us sin. He's not going to force us to do what He wants us to do. But we're going to get the fruit of our sin dumped on our lives. So in the end, this fruit is bitter, it tastes good, and it doesn't produce life. It's not regular fruit. But God still offers us forgiveness no matter how bitter the fruit is. You know, we always have that out there for us as long as we're alive. Excuse me. One more thing. We should not be quick to point out the sin in others and point our fingers at them until we first deal with our own sin. Yes, love the sinner and hate the sin is a biblical statement, but we first have to hate our own sin. We got to deal with our own sin first. And number 5, going back up to the top or near the top of the chapter. First, I thank my God through Jesus Christ for all of you because your faith is proclaimed in all the world. So back up to the top here, and hey, this is my video. If I want to go backwards, I'll go backwards. But when we live by faith, when we turn away from our sin, when I turn away from my sin and reject its fruit, our faith, your faith, my faith is proclaimed. The best witness for the love and mercy of God is a person who receives that love and mercy and offers that love and mercy to others. The message may still get rejected, but it does have an appeal that we have to reckon with. And this is what Paul's talking about here when he's saying, your faith is proclaimed throughout the whole world. All right, then, in summary, this is not an in-depth study of this chapter of the book of Romans by any means. But it's what I learned from just simply reading at it, thinking about it, looking at it. We can all do that. So it says, we're not to be the one to call down the wrath of God on someone, but to proclaim the love and mercy and salvation and grace of God in the person of Jesus. And we can see the power of his love in who Jesus was for each of us and to each of us. And we can see that in the book of Romans, chapter 1. And that is good news. All right, thanks for watching. You can find us on the web at clchurch.cc. That's clchurch.cc. We meet 10:30 Sunday mornings in 20 West Main Street, Catskill, New York. Hope to see you there, and thanks once again.